The end of the world began with the Earth blowing up, which of course was not on Odie's agenda that day. He was sipping a tepid pouch of artificial coffee and contemplating whether to uninstall the game of solitaire on his ship's mainframe when, in a silent burst, Earth vanished. The stars blinked back at him through the cockpit window, utterly indifferent. One moment his home planet was a round, familiar blue orb. The next moment it was confetti, a drifting graveyard of sparkling bits of human ambition. Odie sat there, still chewing the last bit of rehydrated egg product, and muttered, "Well, damn. It wasn't the explosion itself that rattled him. Space pilots were a notoriously pragmatic bunch. But the radio silence that followed. For a moment, there was still static, which was comforting in its own monotonous way. Then, one by one, the satellites blinked out like candles snuffed by a cosmic breeze, until the cockpit was filled with a very deliberate, very empty quiet. And then, the beep. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even particularly alarming at first. Just a faint, tiny little sound that crept up from the comms panel like an insistent mosquito. Beep. He pressed a few buttons to tune it out, but nothing happened. Odie wasn't good at this sort of thing, the world-ending stuff. Routine, A to B. That's the kind of linear thinking a man like him could handle. But not this. Not beep. He tapped the control panel. Hello? Is anybody static? Beep. That's when it hit him there was nobody to answer. Not anymore. The only signal he picked up was from Alpha Centauri, but the signal was grainy, like an old VHS tape that had been left out in the rain. It offered no solace, just fragments of voices that may or may not have belonged to people, but Odie couldn't tell. He felt like a man, eavesdropping on the last conversation in the universe and understanding none of it. He rubbed his temples and muttered, "All right, Odie. Let's think this through." The first wave of debris hit about half an hour later. It wasn't anything major, just a sprinkle of humanity's final contributions to the cosmos slapping into his hull. But it knocked out any last shreds of communication he might have had left. The cargo, gone. Comms, scrambled beyond hope. His route, irrelevant. Beep. "Okay, Tim," he said, leaning back in the cockpit chair. The AI didn't respond. Of course. It wasn't called Tim yet. "Tim?" Odie repeated for comfort. "That's your name now. Tim." It wasn't much of a joke, but it was enough to keep the cold loneliness from gnawing too deep. Tim was short for something Odie couldn't be bothered to invent. Beep. Odie sighed, finally giving the beep the attention it so clearly craved. It was persistent, like a child pulling at his sleeve while the world disintegrated. "Tim, any idea what that noise is?" "I'm afraid I don't have the data to answer that question, Odie." The AI's voice was chipper, but unbothered by their situation, which Odie found both comforting and likewise deeply irritating. Figures. Tim had been his companion on long hauls before, but never had they been in a situation this, well, terminal. The idea of making it to Alpha Centauri was a delusion that lasted a blissful 20 minutes before Odie realized there wasn't enough fuel, and no fancy slingshot gravity maneuver was going to change that. It was simply impossible. He slumped back in his chair. Stage 1 of grief, denial. He leaned forward again. "Tim, pull up the coordinates for a gravity assist. Maybe we can get a little extra speed from Jupiter." "Calculating," Tim chirped optimistically. There was a pause, then, "It's not going to work, Odie." Stage 2 anger. He slammed his fist on the dashboard, causing a spark to fly from the already fried comms. "Damn it, Tim! You could have said that before I got my hopes up." Silence. Beep. Stage 3, bargaining. "Okay, what if we jettison some weight? Maybe the cargo or the chair?" He eyed the seat beneath him, its well-worn cushions now an insult to his desire for mobility. "Tim, what if I get rid of the chair?" "It won't be enough." "Yeah, but I'll have room to stretch my legs." And so, with the kind of reckless abandon that only the last man alive can summon, Odie unbolted his chair and pushed it into the void of space. Watching it tumble, spinning end over end into the blackness, he felt a brief, absurd sense of freedom. He could move around now. He could pace, which was something, wasn't it? But the beep remained. Stage 4, depression. Weeks passed, or maybe days. Time was different now. The second wave of debris hit, knocking out the gravity. Odie floated, untethered, as the rest of his ship followed suit. He spent long hours hauling parts from one end of the ship to the other, attempting to repair the artificial gravity, which was a desperate task that filled his waking moments. It was the claustrophobic dance of a man determined not to be crushed by the vastness of the void. Beep. When Odie finally managed to fix the AG unit, there was a brief moment of triumph. He floated back down to the floor with a grunt of satisfaction. "Fuck yeah," he muttered. But then the Earth debris hit his solar panels. The lights flickered, dimmed. Power was now a luxury he could no longer afford. "Tim," Odie whispered, his breath fogging the cockpit glass, "how much power do we have left?" "Enough for oxygen or heat, not both." Stage 5, acceptance. The heat died first. Odie huddled in his jumpsuit, teeth chattering. It was colder than he had ever imagined space could be, and the beep, that infernal beep, was still there, drilling into the back of his mind. He didn't know what the beep was anymore, but it was all that remained. "Tim," he whispered, the cold wrapping its fingers around his bones. "Just shut up, man." "I'm sorry, Odie." With a final surge of frustration, Odie smashed his control panel. Sparks flew. The lights dimmed further. The AI fell silent. For the first time since the Earth exploded, the beep stopped. Odie sat there, slumped in the dark, alone. He returned to the chair, though it wasn't there anymore, and settled into the space where it used to be. His breath slowed. His vision blurred. He gazed out at the stars, at the infinite stretch of nothing that was everything. And then, as he faded, there was one last sound. Beep.